Rhythm. It's perhaps one of the least talked about aspects of musical analysis, but perhaps one of the most important. Like an emotion, rhythm belongs to that mysterious class of concepts that are easy to experience, yet hard to describe. Rhythm is a feeling. It's oh, excuse me. What was I saying? Oh yeah, rhythm is pretty important. It's like the difference between what are you looking at and what are you looking at? Except musically, of course. This is stupid. You know what? Let's start over. Every month, my highest reward tier patrons get to make a direct request to the channel for a video topic. The way it works is I'll do one of these Patron Request videos a month, and I'll choose the topic from one of these requests. The requests that I don't choose, I'll keep track of and do every month that I don't get a new request, or if it's a really good idea, I'll just do it in a normal video. So this month's Patron Request topic put forward by Fluxy Music is Kirby's Gourmet race theme. Now, different versions of this theme have been used in 9 Kirby games to date, as well as in the Super Smash Bros. Series as the music for the Fountain of Dreams stage. But today, I'm going to look at the original version of the track from Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo. The song sounds vaguely inspired by Russian folk music and is set in the key of C minor with a modulation to the relative major of E flat for the bridge. The harmony is pretty standard, with the C minor section's chord progression consisting entirely of 1, 4, and 5 in very traditional patterns, and the melody is made up of simple movements around the tonic triad. So why is it so fun to listen to? In the game, it's played on constant loop, and it's a little bit predictable as to where it's going to go, so why isn't it boring? Well, this is where my failed attempt at a cool intro comes in. It's all about the rhythm. Rhythm is tricky to talk about in an analytical way because, like I mentioned earlier, it's much easier to feel than it is to describe. Incredibly subtle differences in rhythm can make a huge difference to how a musical phrase sounds. And our way of notating rhythm, while it's the best system we have, can't hope to capture all of the intricacies of what is possible to play. I'm not going to get into too deep a discussion on rhythm in this video, but I do want to talk about the concept of layering rhythms as it applies to arranging a song. Let's start with subdivisions. Subdivisions are different ways of breaking up a beat into smaller parts, and these smaller parts define how we feel the main beat of the music. For example, music that operates on a 16th note subdivision, or 4 notes per beat, will feel different than music that operates on an 8th note subdivision, or 2 notes per beat. It doesn't take much to plant the feeling of these subdivisions in our mind either. As a drummer myself, I know that moving one note in a beat by a fraction of a second can mean the difference between a 16th note groove, a triplet groove, or a 16th note triplet groove. What I mean by layering rhythms is the idea that musical interest can be created by implying different rhythmic subdivisions in this way in different instrumental parts in the same song. So let's take a look at how Gourmet Race Theme uses this idea. The 2-bar intro, as well as setting up the key of C minor, sets up a very clear 8th note subdivision. When the melody comes in, we see this rhythmic layering come into effect. The 8th note subdivision is maintained by the trombones and the hi-hat, which play these offbeat 8th note stabs, while the tuba, bass drum, and snare drum directly counter this rhythm by sticking to a quarter note subdivision throughout the whole piece. On top, the melody starts by emphasizing a half note subdivision. This creates 3 rhythmic layers that interact with each other in a way that is very interesting to listen to. Now, the melody isn't made up entirely of half notes or anything. It fills out with some quarter notes and even a quick 8th note run, but the emphasis and the accents are always placed on beats 1 and 3. The piece also creates a sense of growth and progression entirely by using rhythm. There's really no dynamic changes to speak of, and the instrumentation stays pretty much the same throughout the piece, but it still seems to grow in intensity. Let's walk through it to see why. As I said earlier, we start with these 3 rhythmic layers: half note, 8th note, and quarter note. The drums flirt with a 16th note subdivision at the end of each 4-bar phrase by slipping a couple 16th note hi-hats in, but this serves more to maintain momentum going into the next phrase as well as to foreshadow the end of the piece. At this B section, the top voice drops out and the bass takes the melody while maintaining its quarter note pulse. When this happens, the drums kick into 16th note mode with the hi-hats giving us these quick 16th note offbeats. This creates a new rhythmic layer to replace the half note layer that we just lost. I love this call and response thing happening between the bass and the top voice. When the high brass comes back in with this melodic statement, it's focused more on an 8th note subdivision with just a little hint of 16th note thrown in. Notice how the drums even out with the addition of this voice to avoid cluttering up the music. On the second response, the melody throws in even more 16th note hints to build tension up to the bridge where it finally explodes. The bridge is exhilarating. We get blasted into the key of E flat major, which sounds bright and chipper in comparison to our previous C minor. And the new heavy emphasis on the 16th note subdivision ramps up the excitement to a climax. It really does feel like we're triumphantly ending a race. The interplay between the layers is exceptional at this point too. The drums pare down to a simple 8th note emphasis, and the tuba maintains the quarter note pulse with a few 8th note flourishes thrown in. The melody kicks off every bar with this 16th note galloping figure, which is passed down to the trombones for the second half of each bar as they mimic what the hi-hat was foreshadowing earlier in the piece. It all builds to a climax in the last 2 bars, as we get this 8th note figure in the melody while the tuba goes full 8th note as well, and the trombones and drums fully embrace the 16th note subdivision. All this over a kind of jarring minor 7 chord that acts as the 2 in a big 2-5 to bring us back to C minor, and the piece loops back to the beginning. Perfect! Okay, let's back up a little bit and just look at the melody. It starts out emphasizing a half note subdivision in the A section, then in the B section it alternates between a quarter note subdivision and an 8th note subdivision, gradually incorporating more 16th notes leading into the C section. The C section embraces the 16th note figure at the beginning of each bar, and halfway through the figure is used twice per bar. The rhythmic intensity is constantly ramping up higher and higher until it reaches its breaking point, landing on the leading tone of the key on this strong beat 3. The lack of a real resolution at the end allows the tune to keep repeating over and over without feeling unnatural. As you can see, rhythm plays a huge part in what makes music so, well, musical. Thanks so much to Fluxy Music for the suggestion, and thank you to all my patrons for supporting the channel and helping make these videos happen. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or tweet them at me at 8-Bit Music Theory. And if you want to check out what other rewards my sweet darling patrons get for supporting the channel, feel free to check out my Patreon page with the link below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.